I still remember the day Mr. Raymond called me into his glass-walled office. The morning sunlight poured through the blinds, cutting across the mahogany desk where he sat, tapping his pen. I had worked at Tremont Financial Services for 3 years, loyal, punctual, respectful. I thought he called me in for a promotion. "Cynthia," he said, looking me up and down in a way that made my stomach twist, "you've been doing a fine job, but loyalty goes beyond office hours." I smiled nervously. "Thank you, sir." He leaned back. "You and I could make a powerful team if we keep our partnership private." I froze. It took me a few seconds to realize what he meant. My throat went dry. "I don't understand," I whispered. He smirked. "You do. Think about it. Dinner tonight." I left his office with my heart pounding like a drum. My job suddenly felt poisonous. That night, I stared at myself in the mirror. I was 28, single, working hard to build a life that didn't depend on anyone's mercy. My reflection looked tired but proud. Yet, my boss's words echoed in my head. If I refused, he could make my work life miserable. If I agreed, I'd lose my dignity. The thought of it made me nauseous. I called my best friend Tasha, who had always been my confidant since college. When I told her, she went silent. "Girl," she finally said, "that man's been eyeing you since your first day. But don't play that game. Quit before he ruins your name. Quit." I sighed. I can't just walk away. My mom will call me ungrateful. I'm helping with rent, school fees for my brother. "Dignity first," Tasha said sharply. "You can get another job, but you can't buy self-respect." The next morning, I went to work with my decisions still foggy. But when I walked into the office, I saw a small envelope on my desk. Inside was a note in Mr. Raymond's handwriting. "Dinner at 8. Don't disappoint me." My hands trembled. I knew I couldn't stay. I typed my resignation letter, printed it, and walked straight into his office. His smile vanished when he read the first line. "What's this?" he snapped. "My resignation," I said calmly. "Effective immediately." He frowned, his tone turning cold. "You'll regret this, Cynthia. Jobs like this don't come easy." I looked him in the eye. Neither does respect. When I told my mother, I expected comfort. Instead, I got thunder. "What do you mean you resigned?" she shouted, slamming her hand on the table. "Cynthia, do you know how many people are jobless in this country?" "Mama," I said softly, "my boss wanted me to have an affair with him." "So what?" she snapped. "You could have handled it with wisdom. You're always quick to throw things away. Wicked girl. You don't think about this family." Her words sliced through me. My chest burned. Wicked. Because I didn't sell myself. She turned away. "You should have been smarter. Now who will pay the bills?" For weeks, the house was cold. Mama barely spoke to me. She told my younger brother, Jerome, not to rely on me anymore. Every night, I lay awake, wondering if I made a mistake. The savings I had were melting fast. Tasha tried to cheer me up, inviting me over for dinner. "You did the right thing," she said. "Don't let guilt drag you back into that toxic place." "I wish Mama believed that," I murmured. "Parents see survival, not dignity," Tasha said. "But one day she'll understand." A month later, I heard through a colleague that Mr. Raymond had been exposed. Another woman had secretly recorded him making advances. The company's HR department launched an investigation. When the news reached Mama through a church friend, she grew quiet. For the first time in weeks, she looked at me with something like guilt in her eyes. "Cynthia," she said softly, "you knew all along, didn't you?" I nodded. She sighed deeply. Maybe I was too harsh. I applied for dozens of jobs. Rejections piled up like bricks. Some employers promised to get back to me, but never did. My confidence began to fade. I started selling second-hand clothes online to survive. One evening, while arranging dresses on hangers, Mama came to my room. "You're strong, you know," she said quietly. "You didn't let that man use you." "I see it now." Tears welled up in my eyes. "Thank you, Mama." She hugged me. "You did right, my daughter. Forgive me for calling you wicked." 2 weeks later, I got an unexpected call from Elise Martin, the HR director from Brightbridge Consulting. She had seen my portfolio online and wanted to interview me. The interview went smoothly. Elise, a confident woman in her 40s, smiled and said, "We need people with integrity here. Welcome aboard, Cynthia." That evening, I danced in the living room. Mama clapped her hands, laughing. "My baby is back." My new office felt like sunlight after a storm. The team respected boundaries, the manager was kind, and for once, I felt safe. Each day, I worked with passion, determined to prove that dignity pays. Tasha visited often. "See, I told you. God don't sleep," she teased. I laughed. Sometimes you just have to walk away from poison, no matter how sweet it looks. One afternoon, while having coffee downtown, I ran into Mr. Raymond. He looked older, worn, and uneasy. "Cynthia," he said, forcing a smile. "How are you?" "I'm well," I replied coolly. He hesitated. "You must know they fired me." "I heard," I said, sipping my coffee. "Everyone faces the consequences of their choices." He looked down, ashamed. "You were right to leave." I stood up. "Yes, I was." At church the next Sunday, Mama stood up during testimony time. Her voice shook as she spoke before the congregation. "I once called my daughter wicked," she confessed. "But she chose honor over shame. I thank God for giving her strength." People clapped. Tears rolled down my cheeks. That night, Mama and I sat on the porch. "I was afraid," she admitted. "I didn't want us to suffer." "I understand, Mama," I said. "But sometimes, suffering for a while is better than losing yourself forever." She nodded slowly. "You taught me that." At Brightbridge, I started mentoring young women in the workplace, teaching them to recognize red flags, to speak up, to never trade dignity for comfort. Tasha smiled proudly one evening. "You turned your pain into purpose." I smiled back. "That's the only way to heal." Months later, I received a handwritten letter from an unknown sender. It was from Mr. Raymond. He wrote, "You were the only one who stood up to me. I lost everything, but I'm trying to be better. Thank you for showing me what integrity looks like." I folded the letter carefully and prayed for him. Sometimes, strength changes even the broken. Years later, I became the youngest HR manager at Brightbridge. During my first official speech, I told my story without naming names. When I walked away from a powerful job, people called me foolish. But walking away saved me. Don't let fear make you a prisoner. The applause that followed felt like redemption. Mama was in the front row, tears shining in her eyes. That night, Mama hugged me tight. "I'm proud of you, my daughter. You've become everything I prayed for." I smiled. "You raised me strong, even when you didn't know it." The stars twinkled above us as if they too were clapping for the woman who once chose dignity over despair. 2 months after my promotion, I was invited to speak at a national women's conference in Atlanta. My topic was courage in the workplace. I wore a navy blue suit, the same one I once wore to Tremont Financial on my last day there. When I stepped on stage, my heart trembled. Rows of women, young and old, stared up at me, waiting for my story. "I once walked away from a job that tried to steal my soul," I began. And everyone, even my own mother, thought I was foolish. But sometimes, walking away is how you win. When the applause rose, I saw Mama wiping her eyes in the front row. After the conference, a line of women came to thank me. One of them, Samantha, whispered, "Your story saved me. My boss has been harassing me too. I was scared to leave, but now I'll go." Her trembling hand in mine reminded me of myself years ago. That night, I promised to start a foundation for women in toxic workplaces. With Tasha's help, I launched Rise Women Initiative. We started small, hosting online seminars, legal advice sessions, and mentorship circles. The first meeting took place in my small living room. 10 women showed up. By the end of the year, we had over 200 members. Mama helped with food and drinks. She told everyone proudly, "This is my daughter." She stood up when others bowed. At Bright Bridge, my workload increased. I was now overseeing the recruitment department, but I never forgot my mission. I made sure every young woman I hired knew her rights. One day, Elise, my boss, said, "Cynthia, I see leadership in you. Have you ever thought about being a director?" I laughed nervously. "I'm just trying to keep up." She smiled. "Keep walking, you're almost there." One Thursday afternoon, an email came through my office inbox. It was from Raymond. "Cynthia, I'm in recovery. I've started counseling. I lost my family, my job, and almost myself. Would you allow me to volunteer for your foundation?" I stared at the screen, unsure how to feel. Forgive. Yes. Trust. Not yet. I replied. If your intentions are pure, our doors are open. But we protect women here. He never replied. But that night, I slept with peace. One evening, Mama called me to her room. She looked weak, sitting on the edge of her bed. "Cynthia, I owe you more than an apology. I was afraid of poverty and forgot your worth." I held her hand. "Mama, I understand. You were trying to protect us." She smiled sadly. "No, I was trying to control what I didn't understand. You taught me real strength." We cried together that night, the years of silence melting into forgiveness. During a charity dinner for Rise Women Initiative, I met David Lawson, a civil rights lawyer. He had kind eyes and a voice that carried peace. He said, "Miss Cynthia, I've heard about your work. You're changing lives." We talked for hours about justice, faith, and the power of saying no. When he walked me to my car, he said softly, "Maybe next time, it doesn't have to be about work." I smiled. Maybe it doesn't. Dating David was unlike anything I'd known. He wasn't intimidated by my strength. He celebrated it. Still, I was careful. I had built my life on independence, not dependency. Tasha teased me, "Girl, you're acting like love is a virus. Let that man in." I laughed. "Tasha, love is beautiful, but it must be honest." Just when things were looking perfect, Mama fell ill. High blood pressure, the doctor said. I took time off work to care for her. David stood by me, cooking meals, driving us to the hospital. Mama once whispered to me, "That man loves you. Don't push him away." I smiled weakly. "I won't." Running the foundation while caring for Mama was exhausting. Some board members complained that I wasn't showing up enough. At one meeting, I said, "We built this on truth, not ego. If my absence is a problem, I'll step down." Elise, who had joined the foundation board, raised her hand. "No one's stepping down. Cynthia, take care of your mother. We've got you." That day, I learned that real leadership isn't control, it's trust. After 2 months, Mama began to recover. She started attending Rise meetings again, wearing her colorful African scarves, smiling proudly at every young woman who walked through the door. She'd say, "My daughter once lost everything for her dignity, but look how God restored her." Her faith made me stronger. One Sunday afternoon, after church, David asked me to meet him at the park. When I arrived, there were candles, roses, and the sound of soft jazz. He knelt down. "Cynthia Evans, you taught me what strength looks like. Will you marry me?" Tears flooded my eyes. "Yes, David. Yes." Mama shouted when she heard the news. Finally, my daughter found a man worthy of her heart. The wedding was small, intimate, and beautiful. Tasha was my maid of honor. Mama wore a gold dress that sparkled. When the pastor said, "You may kiss the bride," David looked into my eyes and whispered, "You're my answered prayer." As we danced later that night, I thought of the journey, from tears and rejection to love and victory. Our first apartment was cozy. David and I built it with laughter and prayer. I continued working at Brightbridge while expanding Rise Women Initiative. Some nights, I stayed up late writing speeches for women's seminars. David would come from behind, hug me gently, and say, "You're changing the world, one voice at a time." 1 year later, Brightbridge faced financial trouble. The company downsized, and I was among those laid off. I came home that day, exhausted and tearful. David held me and said, "You've lost jobs before and built empires from ashes. This is just another door closing." He was right. I turned my pain into energy and poured it into my foundation full-time. Within months, Rise Women Initiative received national funding. We opened offices in Chicago, Houston, and Atlanta. We partnered with legal teams to defend women facing harassment. Newspapers called it a movement born from courage. Mama cried as she held the article. "Look at my Cynthia. My once wicked daughter is a blessing to others." With fame came challenges. Critics accused me of exaggerating my story. Some said I was using pain for profit. It hurt deeply, but David reminded me, when you stand for truth, expect stones. Just keep walking. So I walked, head high, heart humble. Years passed. One afternoon, I received another letter, this time from Raymond's sister. "Raymond passed away last month. He often spoke of you with remorse. He said you changed his life, even from afar." I sat in silence, tears slipping down. "May his soul find peace," I whispered. Forgiveness had already done its work. As Mama grew older, she often said, "Cynthia, promise me you'll never dim your light for anyone." "I promise, Mama." She smiled. "You've taught many women how to say no, but remember, saying yes to yourself is just as powerful." Her words became my guiding light. 10 years later, I stood before a crowd of thousands at the annual Rise Women Global Summit. Behind me was a large screen showing my younger self, nervous, broken, standing outside Tremont Financial with a resignation letter in my hand. I said, "I once thought walking away meant failure, but walking away was my beginning. Dignity is power, and every woman here deserves both." The audience rose to their feet in thunderous applause. Mama sat in the front row, frail but radiant. David held her hand proudly. As the music swelled, I looked up, whispering, "Thank you, Lord. I walked away, but you walked with me." And in that moment, I knew, the girl who once left her job to protect her soul had become a woman who changed the world.